I think there was this concept earlier that IT is a service provider, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
changing, and I think it's becoming more like IT is a strategic partner, and IT is no longer just responding to kind of maintaining the systems and just responding to tickets and being very reactive. Rather, the focus is more around are we building the right framework where these business units can come in and interact with us? Do we have the right automation in place? Do we have the right platforms? Are we making it available to them? And do we have the right governance, right?
Welcome to Agents of IT, where we decode the future of enterprise automation and explore what it really takes to achieve agentic, zero-ticket IT. We chat with a wide variety of guests to discover what's broken in IT operations and spotlight the tech and teams leading the zero-ticket charge. Whether you're a CIO trying to shift from reactive firefighting to strategic value, or an automation architect building the next-gen service desk, this is the space for you.
All right, well, let's get into it. We're excited to be joined today by Avro, our guest, and we'll dive in and talk about zero-ticket IT. Thanks for joining us. And I guess let's start with just a little bit of intro and you telling our viewers a little bit about yourself and what brings you to the show.
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot for having me. So I'm the director for enterprise applications and technology services in Altus. I've been with Altus for more than 4 years. I do also have the automation center of excellence team in Altus, and I'm very excited to be on this show and talk more about our automation journey.
Well, awesome. We're very excited to have you. I think it's always fun to talk to people who are as passionate about automation as we are. And, knowing you've got two teams working on automation with you now, and you've done automation at previous companies. So I'd actually love to kind of start there and let's start at the most obvious place, the beginning, right? What sparked your journey into IT automation and kind of where did your origins in automation and IT orchestration come from?
Surely it really dates pretty back, but yeah, I'm going to go through that. So my journey with IT automation really began with a mix of curiosity and drive to challenge the status quo. Early in my career, I found myself repeatedly performing the same manual tasks as many of us, like administrating servers and networks, handling patches, managing deployments, responding to alerts and incidents. And there were some basic SOPs and runbooks, but a lot of that was pretty reactive and repetitive. So the problem solver in me started to wonder if these tasks are repeatable and if we have skeleton runbook around it and a decision tree. Is there a possibility to automate it? That kind of led me to scripting, and I started writing scripts to do basic health checks, or even have certain basic automation to help me with our day-to-day activity. And there was the aha moment for me where I first, created a major automation, which was around network failover and recovery. So ours was a kind of a global multinational company, and we had a lot of satellite offices. And every time there was a network blip or there was a network issue, think about the productivity losses that we used to have, right? It was immense. So that automation that I built, which was more around monitoring the network for packet drops or flip, and write a script which would go in and do a failover. So that means if the link is not healthy, it would fail over to a backup link. And again, when the link was healthy, it would again fail it back, right? And that was really very helpful with improving the network resilience that we had. And it really helped the organization overcome a lot of productivity losses. And I was fortunate enough to be even called in for a user conference. That those days it used to be called as IBM Pulse. It's called something new now. But I actually spoke about how runbook automation can help in network operations. So again, these are the days. Think about when the monitoring tools were pretty new. The orchestration tools were almost in their kind of nuances. So yeah, I think it was great, and I've always had that in me thereafter to say, okay, how do I make use of those automations, and how do I make it more efficient? So I think that's helping me even today.
Well, I mean, I love that. One of the questions we ask a lot is like, how has automation changed your day to day? And it sounds like that was like the origin story of your automation, right? Was like, I'm tired of doing these things that don't need to be manually touched. And I love that you touched on the point that, like, automation isn't necessarily a new step. Like scripting and gosh, it's been done for years, but really bringing life to it and bringing it together and, like, making it part of a larger process with your run books and all of that kind of came together. um from like a first step into the like eliminating the toil and day-to-day pain. Is there any, like, what drove you to think automation is the answer? Like, what was the thing that you were like, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't want to manage this manually or have to log into this server or SSH into this device and fix it.
Yeah, so I'll answer it from a lens of the SRE and ops team that we have, right? So, you know, what we have seen is that automation has truly been a force multiplier for us, right? So every team operates with a finite capacity, and that capacity is typically divided between planned and unplanned work. Planned work is more strategic, supporting ongoing projects, improving systems, and driving innovation. Whereas unplanned work is, on the other hand, includes that firefighting that you were talking about, right? Which is all about, incidents, alerts, that brings in the alert fatigue at times. And then we have those urgent requests, right? Which really, kind of really takes a lot of time away from the team. So what we have found that by using automation to tackle unplanned work, it's actually freeing up time and energy to focus on a lot of these strategic initiatives which really make the business go forward. And we have an audacious goal called as lights out operation. It sounds pretty cheesy, but it's a lofty goal, right? And what we are doing is we're focusing on three areas, right, to really get to that goal. The first being alert response automation. So just like any other organization, there's a lot of telemetry that we have, right? You're monitoring a lot of KPIs and it's generating a lot of noise, but does all the noise really need to be handled by a human? May not be, right? So I think that's where this automation is kind of coming in. And I'll take some examples, like think about the telemetry coming out of CPU, memory, disk, so many agents, so many applications, right? So is there a way that automation can come in and help do a lot of triaging for a lot of those issues and really bring up the true root causes for you, right? And I think that's where automation is helping. I'm pretty happy to even say that we have a coverage of more than 60% for those
Wow.
incidents, right? So that means, if we talk about our observability tools, almost more than 60% of those alerts are actually being handled by these bots, and thereafter it's coming to a human queue. Likewise, the other focus area for us is the provisioning automation. So again, we are dividing provisioning into certain buckets. It could be around access provisioning. So, think about a new person coming into the team. How do we ensure that they get a good user experience? So that is the joiners, movers, leavers process. Is there a way we can
Sure.
have automation which can help around them based upon the personas and the roles that the users need? Yes, we are working towards it. Again, we have close to around 60% capacity kind of coverage there as well when it comes to providing access to enterprise applications. In the same vein, when it comes to service request provisioning, that's another area where either we are provisioning software, we are provisioning certain agents which are needed, we are provisioning certain infrastructure. So yeah, we have our backend bots which are helping with those automations also. Lastly, I think it's all about self-service nowadays, right? So I think that's where we are going next, and that's another thing that we are focusing a lot is how do we get people what they want by themselves, right? So I think it's more around you might want a compliance check report. Okay, fine, here you go. Okay, I want to install a software. Okay, if it's in our pre-approved software installation list, yeah, it's a self-service for you. And likewise, we also have, like being a little bit administrative, like patching, right? A lot of times you'll have questions from your security team. Hey, did you patch this? Did you patch that for us? Okay, you have a self-service tool. Go in and run a patch check, and you can get your report then and there. So again, what we are achieving is a lot of effort avoidance, which our operations teams were having to go through. But having these automations are really kind of deflecting a lot of those kind of touch points for us, and only real issues are kind of coming up. And again, we have that CSI, right, where okay, from a continuous service improvement perspective, what are the ones which are still coming to us, and is there a way we can handle them better, and how do we incrementally enhance and improve? So all in all, I would say this has really helped us. And I think where we are going is how we mature this further based upon the data that we are gathering. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure if that answered your question.
Yeah,
No,
no,
that makes a
absolutely.
lot of sense. The It's interesting. So I have a two-part question for you, but first I just got to point out, like, the professional look that you have going on right now, bro, is it's something. It's making me feel like I need to do some decorating or something, because like you nailed it, man. Like, looking good, looking sharp. But it begs a question. Like, a lot of what you're talking about makes a ton of sense, and freeing up time, I think, being kind of one of those key things that you're positioning to leadership. Um, Tell me a little bit about that journey as you went from scripting to like a very, sounds like an incredibly mature automation investment that you guys are making right now. Like, how has the way that leadership viewed your work shifted, or has it shifted at all through that period of time where like it's 60% coverage for some of these things is a huge number, and I'm sure has significant impact for the business. So I'm really interested, like, is it put you in a different light with the leadership team, and are your conversations different now than they were then?
Yeah, I think the leadership has been very supportive of where we are. I think without that, it may not have been possible.
Yeah.
And there's always that what next, right? So as I said, it's a maturity journey, so it has multiple layers, right? So you start small, you start with very basic automation, and even what we have achieved so far, we have gone there incrementally, right? It's all about evolution beats revolution, right? So I think we have been incrementally taking this into our strides. There is an intent that we gradually want to also get into kind of how do we get into business workflow automation, right? So I think I would say that's where probably up next we want to also target. But again, it's been a journey where we have tackled infrastructure automation, we have tackled request automation, IT automation, but business automation is another one that we would get to. But again, if I go back to your question, I think it's all about the lessons, right? In terms of what we have kind of we have learned along the way, as well as you know how are we approaching it, right? So I think I would say that the approach that we are gradually moving towards is like automation is like a birthright, right? Like when we are bringing in a new service into the business, uh, we have those concepts of non-functional requirements, right? So automation is now part of the non-functional requirement, is that when you are bringing something in, uh, does it have the ability to be orchestrated automatically, right,
Yeah.
using automation? Okay, am I having the self-healing capabilities for that? And
Yeah.
an important thing around there is KPIs, right? So okay, what KPIs are going to define the health of my service? What are the runbooks in terms of how I'm going to do incident response or break fix response? And is there an opportunity for me to automate them so that I avoid that altogether, right? So yeah, I think a lot of those things are kind of testament to our maturity journey. But again, as with any organization, there's been a lot of lesson learned. And if you ask me that, would I be doing something different the next time if I get an opportunity? I would say the answer should be definitely a resounding yes, right? And if I just talk about a few of the lessons, right? So
That'd
one
be
of
great.
them would definitely be establishing a structured automation backlog and prioritization framework. Because again, automation also takes effort, right? And I think you want to channelize that effort towards the right thing, the next big thing. So it's important for you to always gauge and understand from business what's the value, and then figure out what's the effort that needs to build it. One mantra which has worked for us is high value, low effort, right? So
Yeah.
which means we want to go towards those. The next one is invest time to kind of really map the process that you're trying to automate, right? So don't automate just for the sake of just getting a number done and say, yep, I've automated this use case, which might be very enticing, right? But it might make sense to go through and really figure out, is there certain steps which I can avoid, right? It's like I don't need it, right? Why do I want to do it? It's like automating a process which is not very well defined, right? Rather, you take that time to define it properly and then you automate it, and you're going to get a lot of value. So one thing that we do on our side is we follow the plan, build, run model. So in the plan, that's where a lot of critical thinking goes in, right? In terms of, are we doing the right thing? Is it the right way of doing it? And then we build it, and then we run it. That's a good segue into, while we build and run, there's always learnings which comes out of it, right? And I think one big thing for us has always been exception handling, right? So automation sounds good, but automation needs feed and care, right? And it's all about, am I ensuring that all my breakpoints are well covered, right? And is there an opportunity, or is there a way for us to figure out where are the failure points and how I'm going to handle them? That's what we call as exception handling. A very quick example there would be like, if you don't do that well, you might have a service restart, right? But what if you continuously, the service is stopping, your automation is just restarting, but you're just putting the issue under the kind of carpet, right? But it's not really and kind of bringing out the true issues. Another good example could be, your scaling. So you might be scaling your disk or your servers because you are having some kind of a, capacity issue or whatever, right? But you don't get to the root cause. So we use this term called as break loop, right? So we kind of, based upon our tolerance level, we go in and we'll say, okay, we can only have these scaling events, thrice a day, or in 2 days it could only be 4 times, right? And after that, we do break the loop and we'll say, okay, it probably needs a little bit of a human intervention. So again, I would say that
You don't want to just scale your AWS environments
yeah,
infinitely so that you're spending
yes.
tons of money over there. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think I would say, just say that those are some of the good lessons. And again, it's a journey, so we're still learning new. So the list probably is going to grow bigger. But the last one is probably is going to be around communication, and putting the spotlight on what you've released, right? So we do something called as release communications, where we go over in terms of, hey, this is the benefit hypothesis of it. This is why we did it. This is how to use it. This is probably a little bit of a training material for the self-service and all, because that helps with adoption. Otherwise, you're building a lot of tools and capability, but if it's not being used, then yeah, it's not helping your business. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that you mentioned it before too, of like what have you done for me lately? Like in that kind of mindset, when it comes to automation is very powerful, because what you can do with automation is really up to you. It's an incredibly powerful tool to drive impact across the business. I mean, you've touched on quite a few kind of key areas of focus that you can have significant impacts. I also like, you talked about taking an incremental approach to automation, and not that we do, we've seen some of our customers go after, kind of the big bang, and they'll do a
Boiling that
year
ocean.
long, yeah, they'll do a year long project. And it's usually what comes out is very powerful, but there's a lot of opportunity cost. If you did it incrementally in the first month or 2 months, you could see a lot of value from just doing better triage on things and getting better information. So I think a lot of what you're highlighting is incredibly powerful for somebody that's kind of walking into your shoes, today as opposed to years ago. So yeah, I appreciate it. I don't have a question there, so I'll let Ari ask.
Yeah. So this time I get to call you out for not asking a question. No, actually, you touched on two really good things. I mean, Sean highlighted the backlog, which I think, I'd love to I'd love to understand, like, what, as you guys approached this, was that backlog, like, refining and building, was that something that you guys kind of learned and started to do better? Or like, what was your process like? Because I think that's one of the lessons that we see a lot of our customers learn kind of the hard way. Like Sean mentioned, they decide they want to do onboarding, and instead of doing just, the joiners, movers, and leavers part, right? Like, instead of just solving just the Active Directory part or just the, provisioning an account part, they try and boil the whole ocean, and then they spend, a lot of time with a lot of people doing this instead of breaking it apart. I'd love to just understand, like, what your journey was towards the backlog. And then you touched on another point that I've got a second question about, but just love to understand, like, how did you evolve building that backlog, and what did that process look like for you and for eventually for your team?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? So I think I'll tie it back to a couple of things, right? So I think which probably Sean also asked is the leadership piece, right? So I think one interesting challenge from our leadership was how can we make our automation solution pay for itself, right?
Yeah.
And that would drive that ROI discussion, right? In terms of, okay, how do I get my return on investment? And an interesting part to that would be that you can only mature and improve something that you're measuring, right? And uh, one of the foundational aspects to automation that I have seen so far is if you have a strong observability solution, that actually gives you a lot of data in terms of, okay, what next? And likewise, we had a ticketing solution as well, through which we could get a lot of data in terms of, what are our most frequent tickets, right? What are our top talkers? So we made it a combination initially of like the top talkers from an observability platform and top talkers from a kind of a provisioning perspective from our ticketing platform to say, what are we going to go next about, right? So that kind of gave us a pretty good head start to go after and a sizable amount of backlog that we wanted to really go through. And then, again, what I said, right? Like value versus effort. So we knew how much of an effort it would be to go after certain things. Again, some of the ones were very enticing to go after because of the volume, but the effort to automate them were also pretty sizable. And we wanted to take a pretty lean approach, right? Start small, but start smart, and as kind of plan big, right? So the big plan was always there from a strategy perspective, but we wanted to kind of break things down into bite size that we can really go after. So um, another learning that I've always had with many experiences in automation is, stakeholder management, right? So I think it's important for
Sure.
you to really understand who your stakeholders are, and typically your stakeholders could be in security, it could be in your infrastructure teams, it could be your DevOps teams, or your digital experience team, or the client services team, and all of them would have certain pain points, right? And I think fast forwarding, right? So like, yeah, just as I said, right? So those heavy hitters we automated, but thereafter it was all incremental, right? It's like, what next? So we do have those stakeholder calls at a particular cadence that we have agreed, and we kind of go over the backlog with them. We have defined certain automation enhancement requests because again, these are enhancements, right? And we ask those questions in terms of, what is the volume that your teams are getting this, how long does it take for each of those use cases to be done by a human, and thereafter we do the sizing on our side from an automation COE or the center of excellence perspective, and we go around it, right? So I think all in all, if I sum it up, I think you know based upon your ticketing and your observability, it gives you a lot of data, and then you have your stakeholders who can kind of come in and based upon those data, we can have those data driven decisions. Another thing that we try to do, because we have very rich observability and ticketing data, is uh, you know kind of confirm our assumptions, right? If
Yeah.
Sure.
stakeholders are saying that, hey, this is of this much volume, right? We have the data right with us, and that also allows us to take more of a data-driven decision. So, yeah, I would say that that kind of has worked pretty well for us. Uh, just to add, we do have the automation center of excellence, which is more of a centralized place of doing it. I've seen things being done differently as well, right? Where you may have something decentralized. So again, I'm not going to be very prescriptive about here, but I think just giving my opinion that having one team with the center of excellence, which owns the strategy, at least from a platform perspective, has helped us with kind of collaboration with various stakeholders.
So you're actually kind of headed already to my second question, which is awesome. So, one of the things that I think Sean and I have seen a lot in businesses that we've worked with is as they start to mature down the automation path, right? The business and other teams and other siloed groups start to come to you and trust you to be a part of their process and be a part of, like, we're doing something new, or we've got this pain point, or we're bringing on this new tool. Can you help us orchestrate it or automate it? I'd love to hear, I mean, how have you seen your team's roles change? You kind of hinted at it a little bit about when you said you've got, like, when you bring on new tools, you're part of the process of taking a look at what can be orchestrated or automated as part of that kind of bringing on of that process. But I'd love to just understand, like, how have you seen the business's response to your automations change? And do they bring you in earlier? Are they, consulting you and asking you, like, hey, we're looking to solve this problem and we'd like your input? Or, what has that been like for you as you've matured your automation journey?
Yeah, surely. So I think if I talk broadly about IT, because I'm part of a broader IT team, right? So I
Sure,
think
sure.
the role of IT has been evolving, and I think there was this concept earlier that IT is a service provider, right? And I think that's
Yeah.
changing, and I think it's becoming more like IT is a strategic partner, and IT is no longer just responding to kind of maintaining the systems and just responding to tickets and being very reactive. Rather, the focus is more around, are we building the right framework where these business units can come in and interact with us? Do we have the right automation in place? Do we have the right platforms? Are we making it available to them? And do we have the right governance, right? So I think, to your question, I think it's more towards that kind of a framework and a governance, right? So we have matured to a place where now business is coming to us, and we have certain ways to for them, or certain platforms in which they would come and ask those questions, saying that, hey, this is the problem that we are trying to solve. And then we might tell that, okay, yep, we already have a framework for this. This is where other business units are probably making use of it. Why don't you go after that, right? And we don't reinvent the wheel. Whereas definitely there are situations where we say, okay, yeah, we don't have something in place, right? So like, and the technology is evolving so quickly. There's so many new things happening, and there are some good reasons for business to feel that, yeah, we may want to do that, and that's something we take on. We add it to our backlog, and we do a sizing, and then we go after that. So yeah, I think we have come a long way, but I think with the rate things are all changing. I think it's a continuous process.
Yeah,
That is definitely true.
there is nothing changing faster in today's world than technology, and like it's like a great lead into like AI. So like well, one of the interesting things that like Ari and I talk about is how people are starting to look and think about AI is how they've been thinking about automation historically. Like we've seen the way they adopt it kind of follow very similar patterns where people don't really trust AI, so they need to observe it actually operating and monitor what actions it's taking before they really trust it, which is exactly what they have done with workflow engines, right? It's why we've actually built capabilities to have human guided automation, is because you build that trust. And so I'm very interested, given you're talking about the evolution of technology and business, being a strategic partner to the business and helping them to adopt these technologies. What are you seeing right now, or what do you foresee as the impact of AI coming in, and how does that integrate with automation?
Yeah, great question, right? So in my opinion, AI is already fundamentally transforming IT operations, right? So we are actually living it, right? So one of the most impactful areas is AI ops, where AI sits on top of our observability platform and telemetry platforms, and processing a vast volume of metrics, logs, traces, and events across the complex IT infrastructure. So it's allowing us to correlate the symptom events and identify that true root cause, and helps drastically reduce the incident noise. And this is helping so many enterprises to reduce the mean time to detect issues, and ultimately mean time to resolve issues. And I think automation is going hand in hand, right? So I think once the root cause events are identified, okay, can I do my triage, through an automation? And if it's a known issue, can I automate it? And if it's not, then it goes to a human queue. So yeah, I think that's definitely there. Few more areas which we are living, right, is the anomaly detection, right? So where AI and the machine learning models are exceptionally good at spotting patterns and outliers. And with the high velocity and the data stream velocity, I don't know if a human can keep up with it. So we are seeing these AI engines really going in and helping us a lot with going through those logs and figuring it out in terms of what's going on, and telling us that, hey, you might have a memory leak, you may have a bad actor here who's acting on it, right? They could be a network, you know, a runaway, situation somewhere, and our automation solutions are then able to go in and based upon, to your point, right, either human guided or fully automated, assist right there. Another one is the AI-based recommendation engines, right? So I think these are making a real difference as well. So we have an ability where, we can allow those recommendation engines to review our infrastructure environment, our security posture. It can give us very, very, very good view in terms of, okay, these are the gaps that are there, and those recommendations are pretty handy, and it's at least helping us as well as in our cost savings area, right? It kind of goes through and tells a lot of those recommendations in terms of how do you optimize cost. So that's what we are doing right now. But I think looking ahead, I believe one of the most valuable role AI will play is probably a co-pilot for even IT operations teams. I know it's already doing a lot when it comes to like the engineering group, but I'm really looking forward to a co-pilot for IT operations team. I know a lot of emerging technologies are coming, around how it's going to help the SRE groups. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that those capabilities.
See, Ari, build it, man.
Listen, we've got the first steps in Jarvis and more coming for sure. So definitely excited about that. But yeah, so I mean, I think the other side to this, from an AI perspective, you kind of touched on a little bit, was like getting closer to your end users. I'd love to understand how you anticipate using AI and how you anticipate using your automations to get closer to solving some of those problems. Because you kind of highlighted that's one of the next things on your list is bringing more of this to self-service, and do you see some of that tying in as well?
Yeah, I think that's a great segue to agentic AI, right? And I think that's where we are after. That's definitely part of our strategy as well, to explore what options we have, and we are already working on it, right? So we have some POCs which are going on in terms of what and how we would do. But again, in this LLM world of public LLMs and private LLMs, right? I think that's the contemplation that we are having, right? Having those discussions with our kind of data governance team, we want to be very cautious about it. So yeah, that's definitely up on our list. There are some POCs which we are doing, but we are keeping our eyes and ears open for anything out in the market, which can help kind of propel our journey and be that force multiplier for us.
Awesome, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think you've tapped out Ari in all of his questions. But yeah, so thank you so much for joining us, Avro. And I think that's a wrap on this episode of Agents of IT. So huge thanks to you, Avro, for joining. And again, love the background. You're making Ari and I look bad, but we'll step up our game. And thank you so much for sharing your insights on your journey so far.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Agents of IT. If today's conversation got you thinking differently about your own IT operations, or if you're curious about how agentic automation is helping teams make the zero-ticket vision a reality, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You won't want to miss what's next. See you next time.